I'm going to welcome everybody to, I've already lost count of what session this is. This is returning to the office post-COVID. We're going to be talking about this stuff, I think, pretty openly. We would love to have more of a conversation. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to utilize the Q&A function or the chat function. We're all kind of just figuring this out, and Patrick and his company are definitely collecting a lot of data to kind of come up with best practices, but we're also figuring this out, and everybody has a different approach. So feel free to ask questions or make any comments. I am recording this, so for those of you who are interested in listening back or want to share it, I will send the recording out in an email along with a survey later today, probably not right after, but at some point today. And in the chat, you'll see Patrick's LinkedIn link. So feel free to connect with him there. I guess I could throw mine in there too. I'll do that later. All right. With that said, I would love for you, Patrick, to introduce yourself and tell everybody about your company too.
Perfect. Well, Maggie, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you doing this, first of all, because you've covered a lot of great topics that we all are thinking about and need, and crazy times. So my name is Patrick Braswell, and I'm the CEO of Transcend. And Transcend is a commercial real estate brokerage company and building tech company. Our main focus is making sure that the workplace is supporting your business and not constraining your business. And it mostly revolves around office space. But like I said, we do a lot of building technology. So think Zoom rooms and access control and internet and phones. And so this is a weird time for us. I mean, let's be honest. It is a crazy, crazy time for us because we've been out of our offices now for at least a month, if not longer. We're all paying rent on our offices still that we're not using. So that's frustrating. And now we're tasked with the realization of, okay, we do need to start to get back to our office, but how do we do it? So, Transcend has really been, as you said, collecting a lot of data on this and trying to figure it out. And it's crazy. I mean, you and I were talking beforehand, like there is no right answer. I mean, I'm going to help share some stuff and some ideas, but there is no right answer to this.
Yeah, just kind of to open it up in a high level way, the expectation setting, I think, is just going to be really important, right? For business leaders and also for employees to understand that no one has a playbook. No one has this figured out. We're all kind of just trying to figure this out together. So yeah, but I mean, I think we're going to be able to hopefully talk about some helpful stuff today in the next 30 minutes or so.
And I think it'll be interesting too, as we kind of go through this presentation, the fact that, you're the head of people and culture. So you have a great perspective on what employees are going to want and how they feel. I obviously am doing office space all the time. And so I've got a perspective of both, running a business and how are my employees feeling, but also what are the business, what are the building owners thinking going through this and what are their thoughts? And so there needs to be questions around that too. And I know we'll get to it, but it's crazy. So anyway, I'll start the presentation, and Maggie, you and I can kind of go back and forth. And I know you're gonna have some questions for me and I'll have some questions for you on this, but I just really wanted this to have a visual to it, and then we can stop sharing it after that, but hopefully the visuals will help.
Yeah. And for those just joining in, I said this right when we got started, but please feel free to ask us questions or throw any comments in the chat function. We all want to talk about this, and I think we want to keep this more of a fireside chat. So definitely utilize that if you want to. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing is this is what we're used to. And that is, we've really been moving to a industry standard of packing in as many people as we can. And I think we were slowly kind of moving away from that. But in general, most companies are 150 square feet per person. And if you think back to 20 years ago in the 80s, that was more like 250 or even 300 a square foot per person. And so we're getting smaller and smaller. And so this is kind of the norm of what we're used to. And I don't know about you, but just given the fact of what all we're going through right now, that that kind of scares me, right? To be that close to people at this point. So this is what we're all used to. And, this is what we're going to. Like, how do we keep 6 feet apart in an office?
Oh gosh, I don't know. That's hilarious. That image killed me when I first saw it. But no, I mean, it's such an interesting to think about for sure, because, and maybe this isn't an answer necessarily, but I wonder, we talked about this in the parenting session of what are the things that you're going to take with you once all of this is said and done. Hopefully it's at some point sooner than later, and I wonder if, there might be that kind of initial few months where people are very cautious and taking the separation, the 6 feet distance thing very seriously, even returning to the office. But I'm curious if that's actually going to hold true for a long time, right? What if it's similar to kind of that, for example, I remember going to church camps when I was in high school, and you're around all these other kids and you have these amazing speakers and these amazing bands, and then you leave church camp and you're like, yes, and you're on fire, and that lasts for maybe like a week, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you just kind of return. So I wonder if we're going to just return to normal, after a handful of months. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the question, right? Like, when are we going to feel safe to go back to that? To this, the normal space. And, I've laughed and joked around with people, like, human beings have a very short-term memory issue. Like, if you think about it, like, we forget things really quickly, like the pain that we were in and the lessons that we're learning from this. Like, a year from now, are we really going to be worried about it or not? Once we have a vaccine, are we really going to be worried about it or not? Like, are the trends that we're seeing here to stay? And there is no right answer because we just don't know. So there's things that we need to try to figure out on the short term. But the number one thing that really everyone needs to think about is, how do I make people feel safe going back into the office? Like, how do I make people feel safe? And whether that is a short-term worry because a year from now we're going to feel safe no matter what, or if that's a long-term worry, if you want people to come back into your office now, you got to be thinking about this, regardless of what we think. Now, personally, I think, again, short-term memories a year from now will change. So don't go wholly on this side if you're redesigning your office right now, but think through, kind of what you have and in place and what you can utilize. But that's it, Maggie. Like, are we, that to me looks amazing. But if there's 40 people in there, does it still look amazing to me right now?
Well, it begs the question. I mean, do you just create a beautiful space like this and, still focus on creating whatever atmosphere is important to you, while also ensuring that there's a flexible work from home policy, right? I think this is changing hopefully changing business leaders' opinions towards work from home. Because I think people are probably finding out that, oh, they can work from home. And things are different. And sure, we have to create new SOPs and whatever, but, we can do it. So could it be a both and?
Yeah. I mean, and I'll get into that because that's a great point. So with people feeling safe, Transcend did a survey, 59 business leaders responded to it, which was awesome. And the first question we need to ask about feeling safe and going back is, when's the appropriate time to go back? And by the survey, 44% of the people think it's, June or later, which I don't disagree with. And I had one CEO buddy of mine, and it's back to your point. He basically said, Patrick, what's the point in going back early? If my team is productive and they're working from home and they continue to be productive working from home, what's the point in going back too early? Now, with that said, if we're still doing this 6 months from now, I'm going to have a much different culture than I do right now. But I am still able to maintain the culture I want and the productivity I want. What's the point in going back early? So from this survey, obviously, June is the prevalent one, late May is 30%, and then everything else is undecided or earlier, which, it's still shocking to me that people said earlier. But, I've got a 72-year-old that lives on my street that works at a law firm, and he goes into the office every single day and has since this entire thing. He is not social distance one iota. I mean, he's like right here next to me when we talk on the street. He smokes cigars, he drinks brandy, and I mean, he's like the quintessential, like, you're the most highly at risk person, but yet you're not doing anything.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But that's it. I mean, there is no right answer to coming back. I think if you can do a survey and kind of find out what your people are comfortable with, that would be helpful.
Yeah. I was just about to say, if you're already doing engagement surveys, great. Add some sort of question like this to them. Because I think it is important for your employees to feel like their business leaders are thinking about them in this capacity, but it's also just helpful information too. Because what is the point of opening up if 0% of the employees feel safe? I mean, how does that actually help? I mean, in terms of business, how does that actually help with productivity? If people are forced to go into the office and they're just paranoid the whole time about people 2 feet away from them,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious because you're in a group with some other CEOs in Atlanta. What are they all kind of in line too with this survey of just kind of, no, let's wait until June or later?
So it's interesting. The people that are, strictly professional services, yes, like they're all, we're doing a pretty good job work from home. I want to make sure my people are safe. One CEO had a great point, and he said, I'm not worried about any of my employees dying from this. I'm not worried about myself dying from this. We're all very healthy with maybe exception of 1 or 2, but let's just take all that aside. And I don't really, think anyone's going to die from this. What happens if we all go back and 40% of my workforce gets sick because, COVID is so contagious and one person has it in the office. The next thing you know, you have, 40% of your workforce out. Like, how productive are we going to be then? We're not.
Right.
And so that was his point. It's like, that's what I have to think about. I'm not worried about anyone dying from this. I'm just worried about like people not being able to perform their jobs because they are home for 2 weeks. And that affecting 40% of my workforce because we're all packed into an office.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's crazy, but to think about, but that's kind of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing too, and back to your question, but some of the guys in that group have been in the office the entire time because they are essential businesses. And so they've had to really think through, how do I make sure people feel safe? Some of the workers are not, they're much better paid than minimum wage, but they're looking at it going, well, if I get unemployment, I'm actually making more money and I feel safer. So, you have to work through that issue too. And so and we'll get into this later, but the temperature checks and the verifying health and the things of that nature, like they've been doing this now for almost 5 weeks. And it's been interesting to hear the different issues that they've run into throughout this process, which we can all learn some valuable information from. But, in Transcend's same way, we've got a building tech crew that is on construction sites all the time. So they have not once been home. They've been working throughout this entire ordeal.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting to see what the construction industry has been doing to make sure that they feel safe. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'd say that, from the survey, again, the number one concern from the business leaders was just maintaining social distancing. It really wasn't cleanliness. I personally am more worried about how clean is the space going to be, more so than social distancing. But by and large, what people seem to be most worried about is the social distancing within the office.
That's really interesting, because to me that says, I mean, this is just more of a suggestion and a comment, but you can control for the most part, the clean work environment, right? You can sanitize the heck out of your office every hour if you wanted to, even more. But with the number one concern being maintaining social distancing, that to me says to business leaders, wow, we really need to, again, I'm repeating myself, but wow, we really need to think about the work from home policy. And sure, if we want to open up our office, hopefully, past June, we're going to, but also we need to be concerned and take into account the people who are worried about that. The one thing that I'm curious about is how long do you, let's say the work from home policy is adjusted, which is great, but how long do we allow that to be a concern? Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if I'm wording that the best way, but I don't know. That's just a thought. Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah. And I think I'll kind of go to it and come back to some stuff, but I think one of the main things that we're going to talk about as far as, how to make people feel safe is integrating a true work from home strategy. I think the reason business leaders are somewhat afraid of it is because they weren't able to control it, meaning like it just happened and it got pushed upon us and it wasn't a clear part of your strategy. And so what we talk about a lot at Transcend is that, your workspace, and whether that's at home or in the office, it needs to be supporting, not constraining your business and your productivity. So I think if business leaders truly sit down and integrate the strategy into what they want to do and they feel a sense of control of it, then I think they're going to be much more open to doing that, right? I truly have to think that a logically speaking leader is going to go, okay, as long as I'm in control of this and I've got some say into how we do it, then we're going to be good. But it has to be integrated. And my charge to business leaders is to truly think through the, workspace does not necessarily mean office. So as long as your people are productive at home, but have the right setup at home, then you should not fear it. And there's a lot of different things of what's the right setup at home. But to me, we have a good number of younger people working for Transcend, and my wife and I laugh about it. They're like nomads. They don't really ever sit at their desk. They don't have pictures of their families on their desk. Like they literally sit everywhere within our office. So what's the difference? As long as the internet's really good and they got a great laptop, and maybe they need a dual screen, like what else do you really need? The internet is an issue because we've run into that within our own company of people's internet coming in and out. So there's easy fixes for that.
Yeah, for sure.
So it just has to be integrated.
Yeah. I feel like time has already just flown by.
Yeah, it's flown by. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to go back to what some of these other things that,
I'm going to say a couple of things on this, and then we'll kind of go through just the quick, this is what you guys can do as a company. But number one, the question needs to be asked, am I productive from home or not? And are my employees productive from home or not? And truly look at that. And if you're 80% productive at home, that's awesome. If you're 100%, great. But if you're 80%, and like you said earlier, you bring everybody back into the space too quickly and now they're afraid or whatever, and that productivity drops to 60 or 50 or, things of that nature. Like that's the number one question you have to ask and be honest with yourself about it. And then number two, back to that is being in the office going to allow us to be more productive or not? And truly think through that. It's not just a black and white yes or no question anymore. Like what are your employees feeling? What are they not feeling? And how do they look at going back? So, this is kind of here are the 7 steps type deal, and to make sure we're getting it in with time. And the number one thing you start to have to think about is how do we phase people back in? This is not going to be everyone come back to the office. Like this is a slow trickle back. And if it isn't everyone come back into the office, then you got some other things to think through. But most of our clients, and Transcend included, ask yourself which departments can work from home. So start going through the different departments and which departments can't. And once you start looking through that aspect of it, that's who you start to choose who to face people back in and how. But go through it by department and really look through the departments and understand who can work from home and who can't.
That's great.
Yeah. The second one that we started to talk about and we talked about earlier is just the verifying your health. This is actually a little bit trickier than just the simple verify your health, because I've already heard from some attorneys about checking people's temperatures and do you have the right to do that? Do you not? I don't know the answer, right? So what we're telling people is have your employees check their health at home as best they can, check their temperature before they come in. If you're sick or not feeling good, do not come in. Get rid of the culture of, hey, I'm tough, I don't feel good, but I'm going to work hard, I'm still coming in the office. Like, that has no place in the post-COVID world right now. The second thing I would say is write a letter to your building owners and ask them if they're doing anything to verify the health of people walking into their spaces. I've heard some are, some aren't. Even Chick-fil-A has temperature checks already in their kitchen, and they've been doing this for a long time. So there is technology out there to have temperature checks of people walking into lobbies. I'm not saying that I want to do that or it should be done, but those are some of the questions you can ask your building owner to figure that out.
Yeah, that's great. There was actually a question from someone on that, and it was a concern for maybe some CEOs have around, well, do I need to hire someone to take temperatures? How often do we need to clean the office? Who's going to clean the office? How will we know if they do it properly? And then this question is interesting. Who will be legally responsible if an employee gets in contact with a virus while in the office?
So, to answer, you don't need to hire someone. I would designate someone to do temperature checks if that's what you want to do. I also would say that the cleaning aspect of it, building owners are going to vary with what they're willing to do and not willing to do because of cost. Some are doing more to clean like the elevators and the common areas, but a consistent theme is that they're all saying in your space is your responsibility. And so I've already reached out to a couple of janitorial companies, and they are offering additional services to come in and clean, deep clean everything every night, and have a porter come in during the day to clean the break rooms and other high touch areas. And so when you hire that janitorial service, you'll see, and that's on you, and you're the one contracting them. So I think what's going to happen is the building owners are going to take care of the common areas, and then what's in your physical space, you'll need to take care of yourself, and also write policies of a very simple, hey, clean up after yourself.
Yep.
Right. I mean, that's it. And then there was a legal side. What was the question on the legal?
Yeah. Who would be responsible if an employee got sick in the office?
So from what I've heard from attorneys, and again, I am not one, so let me go ahead and say that, it is going to be really hard for any person to prove that they got sick in the office from COVID because it is so contagious.
Right.
So with that said, you will likely not lose a lawsuit if someone were to sue you over this, and you may or may not be responsible, but it doesn't prevent anyone from suing you and having to go through the legal battle of it. But from a couple of employee attorneys that I've spoken to, they've all said it is such a contagious disease that the consistent thing thinking right now is that you can't prove that it happened in the office. Yeah.
And it's probably smart to just protect yourself too, just by writing in those extra policies or updating your handbook or whatever it is, just so that there is something on your end as a business owner.
And that's a good point, Maggie. As long as you have policies in place and you adhere to those policies, then that is an extra layer that will help you through this.
Yep. Okay. What's next? Sorry, we've got 5 minutes left.
Yeah. Integrate workforce, make it safe. Number one, go ahead and buy the products now, because it's going to take 30 days to get them into your office.
Yeah.
And again, set up the policies of you clean your own space and you clean up after yourself. Keep social distancing. This is a quick little diagram to think through your space, or have someone help think through your space of where can people sit and where people can't sit. And so some people are putting down little stickers, some people are putting X's on the office space. Like, there's a bunch of different things that you can kind of work through, but think through your space, think through where people can sit, not sit, and go ahead and mark areas for them to sit down, which is a very key thing here. I said limit travel, but one other thing that a friend and I were talking about is I think meetings going forward, unless it's vitally essential, just have a Zoom meeting.
For sure.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So just go and have a Zoom meeting versus going to that person's office. Limit the travel that's not absolutely necessary, but also potentially limit the face-to-face meetings and just have them via Zoom.
Yep. I think people are probably really seeing that we can do these meetings that used to cost us, honestly, just in travel, thousands of dollars. And now we just pay for a couple extra Zoom licenses, and it's still efficient, and you still get to see the face-to-face,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. I mean, I frankly, I've been able to be more efficient with meetings because they're in a Zoom room, or we use Google Hangouts, but I can have 5 meetings in a day versus, I could only have 2 or 3 if I had to drive places. So.
You know what I just thought about too? You know how sometimes there's just that person who invites every single person to an in-person meeting, like 12 people. Sorry guys, you can't, even if you're in the office, you probably don't have a conference room large enough to fit, and 12 people and social distance. So it's gonna make people rethink, how they're running meetings and who they're inviting, which is important. Anyway, go ahead.
Which they probably should start. Just think that.
Yep.
The last thing is rework your space. Don't completely redesign your space, because A, you don't have time, and B, it's super expensive. So think through different areas of what you can do with your space. Think through, okay, if I am phasing people back, can I utilize the space of the others that are not coming back in right now? And if I do that, what does that look like? we're not recommending any of our clients to just come in whole hog and redesign everything, because it's just too expensive. You don't have time. But we are sitting down with our clients and going through the spaces with them and thinking through different ways to space people out for the time being.
Yep.
And the last thing on here is just, and it does, again, every business is different, but number 1, come up with a plan. Number 2, communicate the plan clearly and give people time to digest it. Not, hey, next week you're coming back in, but give them 2, 3, 4 weeks if you can to truly understand what it looks like so they can mentally prepare to come back. And then the last one is just execute on that, and whatever your plan is and the guidelines you put in place, follow those guidelines.
Yep. I think the communication piece is really, they're all important, but the communication piece, err on the side of over communication, in my opinion. And then there's that one question. Do you see that one, Patrick? I'll read it out. Should we continue to work from home for an even longer period? We kind of covered that in the beginning. What do you feel employers should be providing employees for their workspace? Just their computer, additional screens, desk, chair, etc. Any trends in this area?
Yeah, to answer the one question, is if you can be productive from home, then try to work from home as long as you can. And each company needs to truly think through each department and what that looks like, and be very honest with themselves, and then say, is it worth it for me to bring people back? Again, to the point I made earlier about the CEO is a buddy of mine, your culture is not going to change if you work from home another 2 months. Now, if we're still doing this 6 months later, 8 months later, then you're going to have a much different culture. And that may be a good thing and it may be a bad thing. I can't answer that for you, but for another 2 months, no, it probably is not going to change that much. So think through how you do it, and don't be in a rush to get back. What was the other question?
Should employers provide something beyond the laptop, desk, monitor, screen, chair?
Again, I come back to, if one of the questions that you need to ask yourself is, what functions can't be done from the home? And if the answer is not that much, then great. Then number 2, what setup do you need to provide to your employees to make sure that they're super productive from home? And for me, that's, and Transcend put together a list of these things, but there's really inexpensive Google Wi-Fi enhancers that you can buy to put throughout your house to make sure your Wi-Fi is not coming in and out. And number 2, a great laptop. And I think if you provide those 2 things, then you should be able to be fine. And I think it's on the companies to provide them. Yes, I do. I personally think it is, and maybe that's the wrong thing, but it's not that expensive to do the Wi-Fi enhancers. And hopefully you're already using laptops, but if not, then Time to kill the desktop.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think it just goes back to, what does each employee need to feel most productive without probably overdoing it and providing those things. I agree. I think the employer should definitely give those basics, the good laptop. And now, right now, if you are onboarding anybody right now, which that'd be awesome if you are hiring people, giving them a little bit extra internet enhancement. It is 1:32 and this flew by. I'm so sorry that it flew by. We're chatting so much about great stuff. I will send this recording out and a survey out to all of the attendees. If you want to connect with Patrick, his LinkedIn link is at the very top of this chat. Feel free to ask him any questions on LinkedIn. I know he's on there a lot. And I just want to thank Patrick for sharing your expertise and your knowledge. So thank you so much, Patrick. I appreciate it.
Maggie, thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.